And in the topic, will there be an offensive from Belarus or not, a statement appeared that, according to the decision of the military command, settlements in the Kyiv region, including Kyiv itself, will be prepared for all-round defense. This task was announced by the head of the Vyshhorod District Military Administration, Oleksiy Danchin, at the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities in Slavutich, according to Ukrainska Pravda. According to him, military estimates indicate that just the initial measures alone will require up to 11 billion hryvnias. This week, President Zelensky visited Rivne region and met with the heads of communities from Rivne, Zhytomyr and Volyn regions. He discussed the defense of this northern direction. Ukraine remembers the Russian attack from the direction of Belarus in 2022 and is now increasing its troops in the Chernihiv and Kyiv regions. But is diplomacy already helping with defense in 2026? What does Putin's trip to Beijing have to do with this? And what is the Trump administration asking of Lithuania, Poland and Ukraine? TSN correspondent Olena Chernyakova will tell us more. A new threat, escalation with Belarus, a new ultimatum from Trump to Iran. There were so many statements and signals from world leaders this week that it already resembled reports from the front lines. It has also become clear that instead of the question, will a new war start, the question where and when is now being asked more and more often. For Ukraine, the answer to that question could be Belarus. Putin went to China to ask for money, gas deals and military alliance, but instead received a ceremonial show. A red carpet, an orchestra and groups of school children showing joy. An exact repeat of Trump's visit a week earlier. He was even a bit offended.
I don't know if the ceremony was as splendid as mine. I think we outdid them.
What is absolutely clear is that both leaders arrived to see Xi, let's say, without any particular trump cards. Trump's short, victorious war in Iran turned into a disaster, and Putin's oil refineries keep burning from Ukraine's daily attacks. In contrast, Beijing looked like the center of global diplomacy, where those whom the Chinese depended on for energy and technology just 20 years ago now come to pay their respects.
Now it has been 25 years since the signing of the Sino-Russian Treaty of Good Neighborliness, Friendship and Cooperation.
In fact, the visit was timed to coincide with this anniversary. A memorandum was also produced about 100 pages long, in which they promised to work more deeply, more frequently, and on a larger scale. And Putin brought with him a large delegation of ministers and businessmen hoping to save his gas station country from collapse. And the main point of salvation there was the Power of Siberia 2 gas pipeline.
China is doing everything it can to slow down the development of this project, because for now it has Power of Siberia 1 and, well, enough gas. Today, the absence of this in the final declaration is interpreted by many as a failure. This was item number 1 in Russia's economic agenda.
Putin wanted to arrive to Comrade Xi against the backdrop of frontline successes. Instead, the whole world is now seeing his own burning oil refineries and Moscow's breached air defenses. So he had to play the nuclear card again, reminding everyone of the Kremlin's former greatness. Missiles, aircraft, surface and submarines, and another 64,000 troops, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, were involved in large-scale nuclear force exercises. For the first time, the Russians also involved Belarus in the maneuvers. They delivered nuclear warheads there, and Belarusian troops practiced using the Iskander-M ballistic missile system. This was meant to be seen both in Beijing and in Brussels.
They know the Western mentality very well. They know how much this scares our partners.
Traditionally, such exercises are called Gram and take place in October. So why were they moved to May this time? The Russians have already changed their own schedules and have deployed nuclear carriers outside of regular procedures. This happened in February 2022, and then they launched a full-scale attack. Analysts believe that Minsk's involvement this time may indicate that Putin has finally brought Lukashenko under his control.
Here, the question is simply how much Putin will see, the lack of alternatives, yes, to this scenario. Because, Putin's approval rating is falling, and he has already agreed with Xi that he will continue to put pressure on Europe through the eastern flank.
Last year, 23 Russian drones flew 300 kilometers deep into Poland exactly 1 week after Putin returned from Beijing. This week, the president of Ukraine stated Kyiv is aware of 5 possible scenarios for the potential expansion of the war from the north. An attack could come from Belarus, the Bryansk region, or from the territory of one of the NATO countries. But the greatest threat is not seen in an offensive right now, but in the resumption of missile attacks from the territory of Belarus. Whether it's a coincidence or not, right after Putin announced nuclear maneuvers, the United States launched an intercontinental ballistic missile from a space base on the Pacific coast. As the American general explained, this was to confirm operational capability and combat readiness. And at the end of the week, Donald Trump suddenly announced that he had agreed to send 5,000 American troops to Poland, something he initially did not want to do.
The Allies' commitment to Article 5 is unwavering. If anyone recklessly dares to attack us, the response will be devastating.
According to analysts, the Americans are also not interested in having Putin drag Belarus into a new escalation right now. Over the past year, the Trump administration has established relations with Minsk. Washington currently needs potash from them. This month, the United States even approached Lithuania, Poland and Ukraine with a request to lift sanctions against Belarusian potash and allow its transit. Washington wants to use it to fill the gap created by the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, where not only oil but also fertilizers for the entire world remain blocked. Ultimately, Trump's main focus right now is Iran, against which the American leader postponed a new attack just hours before it was set to begin.
If I can prevent a devastating war by simply waiting for just a couple of days, if I can save many innocent people from dying, then I think that is a truly wonderful and worthwhile thing.
Wait, because there is now a chance to make a deal. The US reportedly asked its allies in the Middle East, but over the course of a week, just as in previous months, the parties were still unable to agree on the two most difficult issues, freedom of navigation and the removal of enriched uranium. Despite this, the US Secretary of State made an effective statement. There has been progress.
I don't want to exaggerate, but there is some movement, and that's good. The main principles remain unchanged. Iran must never obtain nuclear weapons.
This week, Marco Rubio met with NATO allies in Sweden for the first time since the war in Iran began. He called the upcoming summit in Ankara the most important one. He said that the leaders there will have to respond to Trump's disappointment. On the same platform, the head of the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs also held negotiations with partners, including on the threat from Belarus.
In particular, those related to the use of Belarusian infrastructure for launching attacks on Ukrainian territory. And I very much hope that appropriate measures will be taken both by us and by our partners in advance to minimize and neutralize this threat.
However, our chief diplomat did not cross paths with Rubio. Sibiha told journalists that the negotiation process under American leadership is on pause. A similar statement was made by Marco Rubio himself. He called meetings without progress unnecessary. Meanwhile, the European Union wants to appoint its own special representative for military peace negotiations. Among the candidates being considered are former Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi, former German Chancellor Angela Merkel, or the current President of Finland, Alexander Stubb. The latter has good contacts with both Trump and Kyiv. But this is unlikely to be enough to give the negotiations new momentum already this summer. Because this season, the Americans will dive into their elections, the Russians will intensify mobilization, and Europe and China will mostly watch, preparing for their own moves. Olena Cherniakova, Georgi Hornostai, Sam Tijden, 1+1, United News Marathon. Waking up our partners and not letting them forget about Ukraine's role in today's Europe remains the task of our government. For this important NATO summit, which will take place in Turkey at the beginning of July, Secretary General Rutte has already invited President Zelensky. Earlier, Rutte stated that supporting Ukraine would be a priority at this summit. And while you are donating, Ukraine's new tactic of bringing this war onto Russian territory is not only causing hysteria among Muscovites, why us, but is also delivering quite tangible results. Today, in particular, the security service of Ukraine struck a pumping station that supplies fuel to the Moscow region, as well as large oil depots around Moscow and its airports. After Ukrainian drone attacks on oil refineries, Moscow has already banned the export of gasoline from April until the end of July, according to Reuters. And where else our drones' reach extended this week, our correspondent Oksana Radionova will tell you.